Hey guys, Steve here. Today I got a special edition video for you. Video swap with Spartan Elite 43. We call him Spartan in the business. He's given us a Jean Bart game to review on my channel. I've given him a game in the Chop I have to review on his channel. It's either up already by the time this one's published or it should be up relatively soon. So check that out. I'm assuming most of you guys are familiar with Spartan. He's a very popular YouTuber and community contributor for World of Warships Legends. But if on the off chance you haven't checked him out yet, I'll have a link to his channel in this video's description. You're going to want to click on that and then subscribe to the channel, and you won't be disappointed there. So just briefly to touch on the builds. He has a JoJo build, same inspirations I got Cunningham and Celiax on mine. He's got the same setup there. Same setup up and down the board, except for on perk 3 he uses Megalomania, which cuts down the reload. I have the Dispersion perk. Both of them are very good options. You'll see in the game when you have the Megalomania in this game right here, it cuts down the reload. It puts out a lot of high volume of fire when you have that perk. So you're definitely going to see the advantages of that here. Dispersion, it's a component of the overall gun accuracy. Basically, the bigger the dispersion, the wider the oval that the game draws around the ship, the bigger the universe of possibilities for where those shells can go when you pull the trigger. Accuracy / precision, that tightens up the grouping, gets them to go more towards where you're actually aiming them. So if you're going to only rely on one on your accuracy build, you'd want the perk 1, the precision it's called. But dispersion's not too bad either. Both of them are good options. Takes a shot at the Algerie here just before he goes undercover, and bam, hits him pretty hard there. 33k opening salvo, or opening play at least, which is very nice. What he's going to be doing right here, we're on the south side on Haven. This used to be the weak side where you'd have to play pretty defensively. Now it seems like both blue and red teams typically overload this side on this map, so this is usually where the action is. The red team's going to be kind of grouping up into a black hole strategy. Not the most effective strategy in my opinion. Black hole strategy is basically where you ball up into a very small point on the map. And this, what Spartan is doing here, this is a good illustration of why the black hole strategy doesn't work. Because of the, looks like he's got 5 or 6 red ships down here, and he can angle against basically the entire force that's down here, as long as they're not beyond 30 degrees from where he's directly pointing at on either side. They're going to basically be unable to damage him with any effectiveness. The only way he's really going to be taking damage is any shots that go into the superstructure. I think the enemy recognizes that he's not a very attractive target due to this angling, so he's really not going to be taking a lot of incoming fire here in this opening play. So spacing on your team is very important. It's extremely important with battleships, and we do have a bit of an issue on the blue team as well. You can see we have one battleship immediately to the left, and then one about 7 kilometers off to the right there. And battleships, how you kind of want to conceptualize their role, they're like the rook in chess, where you're controlling lines, and if any enemy player makes a mistake in that line, you punish them. And the mistake is showing broadside. So having a bunch of battleships stacked on top of each other is redundant, and they're all punishing the same mistake. Whereas if you get into crossfire situations, as we're going to see when the game develops later on, that's when the battleship's effectiveness is maximized. So try and spread those battleships out. A little bit of an issue for both teams here, but Spartan, he's fine doing what he's doing. The other battleships are attempting to get into a flank, at least on the blue team. So their intention's good there. They are going to get at least that lead one. I think it's Colorado gets focused down and eliminated pretty quickly. But here's an example. This Iowa's making a mistake. He's presenting broadside into the line that Spartan controls, and pow, he gets punished for it. So that's kind of how you want to think about what does the battleship do. Now, as we'll see throughout this game, Spartan is doing a good job of keeping an eye on the map. Good map awareness. He's looking for these broadside targets. A lot of newer players to the game and battleships, or it applies to all classes, but battleships, they'll get focused on one target, shoot at them, and then in their mind, that's all they see. Very tunnel vision, whereas good battleship players, We're going to be checking the map pretty much every time we fire the guns. And you got 20 seconds. You got 30 seconds. You got plenty of time. Shoot your shot. Pull out. You know, he's not zoomed in. You do not want to be zoomed in all the time. You want to be watching for stuff that's developing on the screen, incoming shots to see who's focusing on you, so on and so forth. So do not stay zoomed in and be checking the map for opportunities every time you pull the trigger. That's how you're going to have success. Here we have an opportunity to use the reload boost. He's going to actually attempt to do a double strike, which I like. Mayoko's broadside. Bismarck was fairly broadside. If you check on the map, it's semi-steeply angled. But he does use the reload boost and attempt to take both those ships down. Now at this point in time, they were briefly tied in terms of ships. I think the enemy goes up here shortly. But if you could potentially kill both of those ships in the span of, 10 seconds or whatever, that's a pretty big swing. And especially due to the fact that those ships are attempting to leave the black hole and project more power over the course of the map. So those players, what they're attempting to do at this point in time is more effective than these players directly to the south of them. So a good attempt there. Unfortunately, the game rolls dice every time I pull the trigger, and they didn't come up lucky that time. Now this side over here, remember initially it was like 5 or 6 red ships over here. Now we got 3 left, and 2 of them are battleships. One of them is a cruiser that looks like it's either hugging the line or it's going to attempt to get more westward and create some space between that. Nice Citadel on the King George there. That's a pretty hard ship to Citadel. Citadel is very low below the water line, so you don't see a lot of Citadel hits on that. Could have been like a below the turret shot or something, but regardless, nice shot there. And now that we don't really have much of a threat on the left, our broadside, we're going to move forward. We're going to put some pressure on these guys, and I like this call here. We do have 2 battleships, so what he's going to demonstrate this pretty well here. You always want to identify who's the biggest threat to me. Angle your ship towards that biggest threat. So the biggest threat in this group, we have an unknown cruiser. There he pops up. If he loads AP as Spartan pushes in here, could potentially start peppering him. So maybe you'd want to stop here ideally and prevent that ship from getting into a broadside position, firing position on his own ship. But the Iowa has the best guns. He's also the closest. The closer you are, the more accurate the shots are. So the Iowa's the primary threat. And then we got, I believe, a King George behind him who's moving from center screen to left screen. So we're going to primarily be angling at these battleships. Again, the cruiser is going to do a little bit of damage, but he's not the primary threat. So good job angling there. We do also, you got to keep an eye on that left-hand incoming shots from that battleship. I think it's a Jean Bart over there, but he is most likely focused on the people that are on the base. Looks like him and probably the destroyer are attempting to push forward into the base at this point in time. So as long as you're not taking those shots, it's not a big issue. And as he pulls forward here, now we have the island protecting his left side as well. So good job positioning here. He's not doing the classic John Bart play, the scrub play, which is I load in the game, I don't move the entire game, and I just lob shots from the moon while looking at targets through the Hubble telescope. Those are bad Jean Bart players. You don't want them on the team. Spartan's doing a good job of responding to the game developing, responding to the enemy's movements and the opportunities that present themselves, and continuing to push forward into pressure. There we did have a crossfire shot from something, so we do need to keep an eye on that. And now he does angle a little bit towards the left. Again, the Iowa's still the primary threat, King George secondary, and the long-range battleship. The more he gets access to the broadside, I would argue the more and more dangerous those shots from the left are. But they are longer range, and it was a good job getting rid of that Iowa first. And now we're in a situation where he's covered his entrance cost to the game, which is doing 65,000 damage. That's his ship's HP. And he's essentially doubled it already. And they still have 5 enemy ships left on their team. So if you envision each team's HP pool as a big pie, and your ship represents 65,000 worth, if you don't do 65,000 damage, then the enemy team, by removing you, is doing more harm to your team than you're doing to their team. Not the most effective way to view the game as a destroyer player, as the destroyers have many other roles from strictly dealing damage. But for a battleship player, I think that kind of way of viewing the game is the most effective. So we've covered the entrance fee of 65,000 damage. We've doubled it, and there's opportunity to do more. So very good start to the game here as we're about 10 minutes in. King George goes down as well. Now we're up to 2 kills. And now he does a very good job here. This is a point in time where a lot of players lose the game. Even though they're up in ships, this is an imminently losable game. And how you do that is you push forward into the base and attempt to cap. What you want to do in capture the base mode, in probably about 90% of the games, is clear your side. And on this particular game, that was the flank to the south. We cleared that. And then you want to go back and defend your base. And that's going to help your win rate go up. If you're defending your base and capture the base mode, rather than having the mentality, in order to win this game, I got to cap. That's going to lose you the game very often because you're ceding control to the enemy. If the enemy kills the ships that are guarding our base and we're out of position trying to get into their base, then at that point in time, we don't have enough time to turn around and save the game. So very good job. Keeping an eye on the game situation, keeping an eye on the map, recognizing that the enemy is pushing towards the blue base and going back to defend it. The other advantage of that mentality is now we're getting the crossfires that we were talking about earlier. We've cleared our side. Now we're on the flanks of these ships. That John Bart is primarily angled towards the battleship he's aware of. That's to the western edge of the map. He's also trying to get on base. So he's presenting perfect broadside here, and Spartan's doing a good job punishing him. He's got a Kagero escort right next to him that we're going to have to keep an eye on, but the Jean Bart's going to go down very quickly with that positioning there. And the Bismarck, he's also attempting to get northward to the base, so we're going to have access to that broadside. And the cruiser as well, looks like, whatever that cruiser is. So, again, clear your side, go back to defend your base. You're going to reap the rewards by doing so. Another reason you're going to want that defend the base mentality, right now they got a ship on our base, and that is increasing the score to the enemy's team. They're getting points every 5 seconds just because we're not on their base, but as long as they're on our base, whether it's contested or not, we're not accruing any more points. So if they kill a couple ships, then run away, they can easily win on the score. So the list of reasons to defend the base is long, and you really got to do it. Mayoko's broadside there, and this is another crossfire that Spartan's created. Popped him in the citadel. Not a problem. Now we're just shy of 3 times the John Bart's base HP and damage. Very nice game. He's loading HE, doing a good job against his Kagero. These battleships with quick cycling guns, quick reloads, no reason to not be switching the shells when needed, and shooting destroyers, always going to be more effective with HE. Fires away, and he's going to land the Kraken here. So, very nice game, Spartan. Thank you very much for sharing it with us. Hope everyone did enjoy it. If you did, please hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, you should consider subscribing. There's a lot of World of Warships coming all the time. Questions, comments, leave them below in the comments section. I do love to hear from you guys. And we'll see y'all later. All right, peace.